Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Vader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the opportunity to chat with Brooks Hamilton of Hamilton AI Strategy Advisors. I had the opportunity to see Brooks speak back in June at a Applied AI for a Distribution conference put on by Distribution Strategy Group. And as I allude to in the interview, we talk a little bit about some of the things I saw, and very, very interesting individual, and really seems to have his fingers on the pulse of kind of where distribution is going, how AI is going to play in there. I mean, obviously, it's all crystal ball stuff, and we're not exactly sure, but there are some patterns that are emerging that Brooks is very, very in tune with, especially with his technology background, and obviously with his understanding of transaction data sets that we have in distribution. And we just have a really great conversation about what are the areas that AI is really applicable, and maybe sometimes where it is not, and where we have to kind of draw the line philosophically, where AI should be included and maybe where it shouldn't be included, and how to mitigate the fear of AI, especially around job loss and the folks within our organization. So just a really interesting conversation. And I will post a clip that he had shared at his conference, this conference that really just blew me away with voice-based AI agents. And so anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation with Brooks, and I hope you do too. This episode is brought to you by Connected Peers, an online peer collaboration platform for distribution professionals. Let's face it, most managers don't have the opportunity to speak with their industry peers about common challenges in their departments. Sure, they might see each other at an annual conference, but that hardly provides any real relationship building or continuity. What if there was a forum to solve challenges with those in your same role? Well, now there is. The concept is simple. Purchasing managers meeting with purchasing managers, training managers meeting with training managers, marketing managers meeting with marketing managers. You get the idea. There are 10 unique role-based communities to choose from. These are monthly, facilitated meetings, all via Zoom. Ask questions and receive feedback from people who understand the challenges of your position. Isn't it time that you quit going it alone? To learn more and find your peers, visit us at www.connectedpeers.com. Well, hey, Brooks, welcome to Distribution Talk. Thanks for taking the time to be with me today.
Thanks, Jason. This is going to be a lot of fun. I've been a long-time listener, and I love what you're doing with this.
Appreciate that. Yeah. It's been a fun, journey. Gosh, a little over 5 years now. I mean, I've been, introducing folks. So, if you wouldn't mind, just give us a little background, kind of where you got started and then how distribution kind of came into your world.
Yeah.
Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, we can go into the Wayback Machine. I grew up on the border with Mexico and Texas. We're at the southern tip of Texas. So when I was growing up, Mexico was open. The beach was 20 minutes away, and it was a really great place to see things from a few perspectives.
Yeah.
And then after that, career-wise, it's interesting how things work out. You kind of think you're getting pointed in one direction. I started off in Latin American investment banking.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
So I spent a lot of time in Mexico and South America, then decided tech looked a lot more interesting to me than the investment banking progression. I was really interested in what can I build versus necessarily what could I move around.
Gotcha. Okay.
And, that led to moving to Austin during the boom of the first internet wave, and, flipped over to work with a company that ended up doing well in a portfolio. And then from there, it's kind of a matter of following a little bit of, what your interests are.
Yeah.
And one of my interests was, I was really curious about game theory.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And how can we go about modeling human interactions and taking more of a quantitative approach to it? So that's what kind of my original thesis work was about, and how that kind of came together and then later led me to distribution was we created a company which would model large contracts that are made for manufacturers producing goods at very high volumes. So we think about specialty chemicals, forestry products, petroleum, all of those realms. And that kind of got me into the industrials. Then from there, I began working on a set of pricing problems as well as sales opportunity problems at another company. And that's when I began my love of working in distribution.
Okay. So interesting. Yeah. It's funny, because as I think I shared with you before that I spend an awful lot of time in the construction side, but then that's taken into industrial as well. But I do have a lot of love for the petroleum and chemical folks. I've had interviewed a couple of folks on there, and no, it's really, really interesting. So tell me a little bit about, so you got a little bit of interest towards the distribution side again through that industrial door there. But tell me a little bit about some of that early work that eventually led you into where you are today.
So the original problems that we were working on were, how do you go about valuing contracts options that you're negotiating? And let's give an example.
Yeah.
So let's say I have a plant that is producing benzene. So specialty chemical.
Yeah.
And I have two ways that I can sell it. I can sell it via contract so that I'm locking up volume, or I can sell it on the spot market. And these prices are constantly moving around. And the people who are buying my product, in this case benzene, they are going to look at the market every time they buy and decide, should I buy on the contract price that I negotiated perhaps years ago, and spot might actually be lower than my original contract price. So I'm going to go ahead and take as much volume out of the spot market instead of the contract market. So when I'm building this contract, I'm trying to figure out what my profitability is going to be going forward. And if I'm not cautious and thoughtful about how I construct certain aspects of the contract, like what the volume taking behavior is, then I can end up with a very large and very unprofitable contract. By very large, these can stretch into the billions. So it's substantial money. And what we were able to do using a Monte Carlo simulation was to, one, model the aspects of the contract, then model the market, then create a whole bunch of scenarios and say, hey, listen, maybe you want to kind of push your contract term one way or the other. And those really small decisions would result in millions to tens of millions of dollars of difference. So that was kind of neat from kind of one basis, but you're only dealing with like a few contracts and a few pieces of data. And that's not great from the standpoint of trying to figure out more general principles and to be able to apply broadly across an entire industry. So you can get really niche down. So the next set of problems that I worked on were primarily related to pricing. And now we kind of go from a few contracts for a few customers to now hundreds of thousands to potentially even up to millions of products sold to tens to hundreds of thousands of customers, sold by up to thousands of sales reps under many, many different conditions. Wow. That's enormous complexity.
Huge data set. Absolutely. Huge data set to work with.
Huge data set. And who in the world can remember what the right price is? If I'm a sales rep, how in the world am I going to remember like what's appropriate? And like you and like many of the people listening, like we came from or where I am now as a standpoint of a small business owner. And as a small business owner, we always want to continue to build our business, just like as a sales rep, I want to continue to build up my business. And as part of that, I don't want to overprice something and lose my client. I don't want to underprice it and lose my shirt. So though trying to provide guidance under those circumstances is tremendously difficult. If you're taking kind of an Excel approach to it or a cultural approach to it, most organizations are very decentralized in their pricing process, leaving it up to sales reps and in kind of a B2B sales context. So you can end up with a very common situation, which is let's go to a very different part of the economy from benzene production instead to food distribution.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite clients, maybe for obvious reasons, are food distributors.
Sure.
And if you're going to go sell like soy sauce, go sell that to the Four Seasons. That's probably one price. If you are instead going to go sell soy sauce to a chain of East Asian restaurants, that is something that they are going to watch like a hawk.
Right.
And if I am accustomed to working with East Asian restaurants and have a feel for how soy sauce should be priced, and then I go talk to the Four Seasons where they're hardly buying any soy sauce and they have great margins. Well, I'm instead taking that bias that I learned from one segment and applying it to another, not by any fault of my own. It's really just, this has been my experience and my path.
And you're going to leave money on the table. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Also as a sales rep, like I don't want to look dumb.
Right.
Especially if I'm a few years in and I don't know the full product catalog and I don't know the pricing preferences of my various client bases. So what we did is we said, listen, this is not a human solvable problem any longer. This is also not an Excel solvable problem any longer. It's just too complex. There are too many different circumstances in order to provide meaningful and relevant guidance of how something should be priced. So instead, we used a set of machine learning tools, what was then really kind of cutting AI at the time, and we're able to really provide a ton of value to those clients and sales reps that were using our solutions.
Gotcha. Right on. So tell me how that kind of rolled into your AI world.
Yeah, there are three forces that led me in this direction. One was professional, just simply needed to keep up with the science of it. Since we were offering a service of pricing as well as sales effectiveness. Second was, it's just been a long time interest of mine that's dated back since I was in high school of wanting to try to quantitatively model social activities. And then the third is I have an autistic son. And so he has a very different way of looking at the world. And it's been very interesting kind of parsing through what is intelligence when language skills are kind of iffy and many of our intelligence tests are very language assessment based. So that kind of led to some activity of additional research there. And I had what was maybe a bit of a moment, a time when the direction of things became a little bit clearer was in actually 2012.
Okay.
And in 2012, Google released a paper by a set of individuals who are now kind of luminaries in the field saying, hey, we got really good at translating. And previously, the translation effectiveness rates were like around 60%. And they came up with a new method. It was neural network based, and they were rocking at 85% accuracy. And it just blew away everything. And then the real shocker was they said, listen, we trained this thing and we can go from language to language, but we also recognize we were able to train it on images. And instead of going from image to word, they said, can we run this thing backwards? And they said, all right, let's try that. So they started with the word of cat and then produced something that looked like an image of a cat.
Interesting.
And it
Okay.
was the first time anything like that had been done. And at that point, I realized, okay, we've been through this little uptick in research, and that now points us in another place. And at that time, I came to really dedicate myself to reading and understanding what was happening in the technology. And also because the community at that time among AI was quite small, it provided an opportunity to meet a number of the now luminaries in the field, such as been on a couple conference calls with Sam Altman back when it was just like Sam was just some guy who's leading a company that was kind of small and doing some interesting work, but nothing groundbreaking.
Yeah.
It's very unusual to maybe be in a situation like this. I say it's like, this is going to be the most Austin hipster thing I'll ever say. But, we were kind of like hanging out and doing AI stuff before AI was cool.
Right.
So,
okay. There you go.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah. There's your statement right there, man.
Yeah. This has been a great podcast with you, Jason. I think we're all done. But to kind of get there.
Yeah.
And to answer the rest of your question, it is after working at a price and sales effectiveness organization for 17 years, eventually leading the professional services team there, I decided this is a great time to go follow my passion, and left. And then I thought, I will go do some AI consulting, but I'm not really sure the market is going to be ready for it. So I was scratching my head a little bit about like, what are those first things going to be? And then 2 weeks later, ChatGPT launched in November 30th, 22. And then after that, the whole landscape changed.
Wagons West, man. It was all of a sudden, Wild Wild West. Yeah. Interesting. So, is again, you and I met at the Applied AI for Distributors. DSG puts that on. Fantastic event, by the way. I'm
excellent.
I encourage that to all listeners. I'm like, man, this is something you got to see. So you spent obviously quite a bit, really understanding, that distribution audience. So where are we going, man? Where is the distribution world going with AI? I think all of us have our little micro ideas, but I'd love to hear from somebody who has been in the game now for way longer than most of us. So
I think distribution is known as a little bit of a technology laggard, but I think in some ways that's an unfair characterization. And let me kind of explain this. There's been a playbook in distribution that has worked very well over the past 50, 60 years of focusing on the primary value propositions of distribution of I have the right products that are in stock. I can get them to you on time. That means I'm going to really think about my product assortment, my warehousing, my logistics. I'm going to provide that to you at a fair price. But that pricing piece is usually third or fourth in terms of the value prop. So I think that distribution has really focused on the right part of the equation. But now that playbook is likely going to change. And the reason that it is going to change is much of the way that distribution is built. So distribution is a very data-rich industry.
Yes.
There is a very high level of kind of number of things, which in the tech biz we call cardinality. It just means like there are not 10 products that we're selling. There are 10,000 products that we're selling. And there's a very wide amount of distribution. Much of these systems and processes are not quite the same from distributor to distributor, but they rhyme. It is much of the same objectives. So when outside organizations look at this, they see something that really fits well for the current set of AI capabilities. And what I mean by that is there are processes which can be addressed that have not been able to be addressed in the current technology stack. And also there is sufficient consistency of process from organization to organization to allow for significant injection of technology solutions. So it's a lot of pretty words.
Yes.
Let's zero in on what does this mean?
Yeah.
What this means is there are a large chunk of processes in our organizations that are really hard, but are really important. Let me give you like one example here. How about a vendor price increase?
Sure. Yeah.
This happens all the time. It was maddening during COVID to try to keep up with all of this.
Absolutely.
And it was one after the other after the other.
Absolutely.
And most organizations handle this process entirely in Excel and with really knowledgeable people.
Yeah.
As we see more of the distribution workforce retiring, that knowledge base is diminishing. And we will expect to see a fair amount of AI capability come into processes like that, where prior ERP applications and whatnot can deal really well when the data is exactly the same and the structure is exactly the same. But let's say I have a part ID for my internal purposes, my vendor has a part ID, my customer has a part ID. These things don't match.
Right.
They might be similar, but they don't match. The traditional ERP and ETL capabilities will just fail on that. Can't do anything. Or VLOOKUP in Excel, same thing, won't work. AI, on the other hand, has no problem with that. It knows, oh, yeah, that product is totally the same thing as this product. And it can do things like look at the catalog entries, look at the product descriptions, look at the product images, compare these things, and then it knows, bang, yeah, I know how to put these things together. So let's just take like that one thing and think about how many places that shows up in the organization today and how much friction that produces.
Sure.
So there are things like vendor cost changes, RFQ process, where I need to respond on 100,000 items or some type of market basket of whatever the number is, 100 or 100,000. When I go out to go sell as a salesperson and I need to talk about a certain item, my customer's talking about it in one set of terms. I'm not quite familiar with that. How does that map into my products?
Yeah.
Okay, now I have a buddy to come and help me with all of those things.
Right.
So that to me is just like, it's one example of where there were sets of problems where we didn't have tools to solve them before, where this new set of tooling that we have available to us with these AI technologies is going to make that very, very different.
Interesting. This episode of Distribution Talk is sponsored by InSQL Distribution Software. InSQL is a fully functional distribution-based software package. I only recommend software packages that were purpose-built to serve distribution, and these folks do it very well at a price point many smaller distributors can afford. Economy doesn't mean compromise. This company is on the cutting edge of distribution-friendly applications like VMI on mobile devices, mobile signature capture, mobile CRM, warehouse management software, and e-commerce development. If you're ready to step up to a fully loaded, scalable distribution package at an affordable price, look no further than InSQL Distribution Software at www.insql.com. That's INXSQL.com. So, one of the things you and I spoke about earlier was really about the new distributor, what that new distributor is going to look like. And really going from that traditional, highly transactional, lots of crunching, lots of thinking associated, and remembering, a lot of rote memory, let's put it that way. I mean, that's really where a lot of this comes from. What is that new distributor? And maybe it's an upstart. Maybe it is. It's a brand new. It's not a legacy transformation. It's an upstart. What do you see that possibly looking like? I mean, obviously we don't have a crystal ball, but I mean, where's it going?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm super glad you're raising that, Jason. Let's think about how much of your cost basis is tied up in corporate functions. So not sales related, not logistics, not warehousing, but all of those people that you need in your organization as the glue to make it work together. I think a lot of venture capital firms and private equity firms are looking at that as an area to collapse from a cost standpoint. So they may say the distributor of the future may look like an in-person sales presence. So maybe not a lot of change there, but a huge amount of change in terms of how much it costs to execute a transaction or to run an organization's back office is going to look quite different. These are aspects that we see coming out with a technology called agents, sometimes called autonomous agents. Microsoft has talked a lot about them. They have 10 of them available. And as these agents come out, they are going to likely replace some of the tasks or the work associated with some tasks, maybe versus roles. And we will see these distributors basically operating at a far lower cost basis. And then they may use that as a way of acquiring other firms or expanding out their growth organically. We see kind of some stirrings out there of venture capital groups interested in providing the technology, private equity firms interested in providing the capital, and then going to go run some new experiments. Where we see this pop up today is, for example, QXO in building products, where they've put an offer out to one company, which was rejected, I believe, a second one, Beacon, which they're in the process of negotiating to, I think, try out some of these hypotheses that they have about how efficient can we make this.
Interesting. Something you and I spoke about, what triggered me here was my challenge has always been that dormant account. That dormant account thing has just kind of been a pet peeve of mine. And I feel like the agents you're describing, okay, so we have tried in distribution many, many times over, asking inside salespeople or some individual to reach out and try to, rise from the ashes, trying to bring these folks who have accounts on the books. And for one reason or another, it was incredibly difficult for inside salespeople to reach out to those folks. Perhaps it's not in their personality type or DNA, or just the sheer volume of them is overwhelming. And all of those things are probably barriers to be successful. But it seems to me that you have this amazing potential application using these AI agents that you're talking about to at least make first contact back. Hey, did you know that you have an open account with us of X amount of dollars? And, boy, what can we do to earn your business? Or the last things that you bought were such and such, did you know? Does that feel like there's some potential there, some legs there?
That to me is like totally bang on. So, let's think about that from an inside salesperson standpoint. Like, what do I have to do to go find a list of prior accounts? Now, how do I prioritize them? Who do I reach out to? What did they buy last? Who would be an appropriate person in there to go reach out to? Like, that's a lot of steps.
Yes. Yeah.
And I bet each of those steps, I have to go either talk to someone or I need to go look it up in a system somewhere. And I bet each of those steps is a different system.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So where I think of like tomorrow type activity is, you could put together a great little AI agent to go do all of that research of grab the list, prioritize them, score them, figure out who to talk to. What do I talk to them about? What objections are they likely to have? How do I overcome those objections? And then I just hit go and go make that call as an inside sales rep. Wow, I'm now so much more likely to actually connect and revitalize that relationship. I'm going to be able to just chew through those at more like 20 a day or however many there might be, rather than just a handful that I would have been able to get to otherwise and just not cracked it.
Right. No, I think you're right. Coupling it with that inside salesperson, I think is a very, could be an effective strategy. But I'm going to go back to when you spoke at the conference in June. The demonstration just kind of blew me away. It was the logistics demonstration with voice AI. Could you describe that a little bit for the audience?
Yeah. So via work at a client in the logistics space, we began speaking with a company by the name of Happy Robot. They are a company really focused on how do we bring voice to really repetitive tasks that engage voice. So in logistics, just like in distribution, we have track and trace, which is where's my order? Where is the truck right now?
Right. Sure.
And to find out where the truck is, you need to contact the driver. Right. That's a typical track and trace. And what they found was, they would do things like, oh, here's an app, or we're going to do nothing worked.
Right.
But what works great is just call them. So a lot of these logistical brokers have like a warehouse full of people calling truckers and drivers to just find out where they are. Well, a much better solution to that was one that Happy Robot had, where they have a voice call and can speak to that trucker, one in whatever language they prefer, but also engage in things like, where are you, track and trace? How far out are you? Oh, do you want to go do another load next? Because we've got something for you. It can negotiate the price on the phone.
Yeah, that was the one that blew me away. That's the side that blew me away.
And like that great, I'm offering it to you for 800. You want 900. Let me go check with my boss. Hold on for a second.
Exactly. That was the part that blew me away. It was it is a natural progression. It's what we would have expected. Hold on, let me see if I can clear this with my boss. You see that in car deals and things like that. Oh, let me go get the sales manager or something like that. But absolutely blew me away.
Yeah, I have to say, one of the other really cool parts of working with that team was they were configuring it via text as we were on the phone with them. And we reached one point where we were like, man, that response that the agent has is kind of verbose. Like, can you make it shorter? And we thought that they'd be like, yeah, contact us in a couple of weeks. We'll show you what it is.
Right. Give me a little time to fix this. Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, hold on. They brought up the console and just typed in, make the responses concise and professional. And then we ran through it again. And this time around, it was snappy.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, that was something that, again, that blew me away. And so I really thought about, could we introduce something like that in this problem of resurrecting dormant accounts? And I really think that there's a possibility there. I haven't seen it. I did do some research myself, looking at a couple of these things to see. And I've seen it where there's interaction. The example I saw, it was dentist appointments, confirming a dentist appointment or something like that, reaching out to the patient saying, are you, still coming or something like that, and I thought, okay, that's an interesting application, but I feel like, could we in the distribution world take it one step further? And I really believe that we could.
Zero doubt.
Yeah.
I think you're really nailing that. To me, the item that distribution organizations need to consider is, how are they going to use AI within their organization? And how does that align with their value proposition to the market, as well as what they're known for? So I'm going to give just a quick example here.
Yeah.
There's a CEO that I really admire in New Zealand, and his approach was, I want to use AI everywhere in our business except where there is a client touch point.
Okay.
And I thought, wait, what? That doesn't seem like the most efficient thing.
Sure.
And he said, listen, I get it. It isn't the most efficient thing, but we're known for being the voice and the people who are going to help you with the value add services. So he said, I don't want to change any of my customer facing aspect, but I want to try to otherwise make this as efficient as possible. But then there are other aspects of, like, think of, let's say I have a product defect issue as a customer.
Yeah.
How long and what is the process like in order to go follow up on that? Who do I need to call? Are they there? Do I have the right person? What do I go do to make this easy? And maybe it's also off hours. And I get bounced around a little bit because that's not a high priority item for my distributor. Well, that is, to me, like a great area to insert an AI bot, available 24/7.
Yep.
knows pretty much what everybody else knows, can help me with this. It can fill out the form, send it to me to validate. Hey, did I get everything right? Okay, yeah, you needed to change this thing and that thing. Fantastic. Let's get this return going. We'll go ahead and schedule somebody out there to go pick it up on Monday.
Brooks, you are speaking my language. Literally yesterday, I was trying to return something to a distributor. I wanted to return something. I had chosen the wrong color. I bought the right color. And because I was not an account, I was a guest account online. The pop-up, rather than being able to do it online, it said pop-up was call this 800 number. I'm like, great. Okay, I can do that. So I call the 800 number. You are 30th in line, to reach. And I literally was like, I'm hanging up now. And I am very close to eating the money at this point, just because I don't want to hassle with this. But I think you just hit absolutely on what I would love to have seen, someone or a bot, because this was not a complicated transaction. I hadn't opened it. I looked at the color quickly. It's like, nope, that's not the right color. I just want to send it back.
Yeah.
I'll pay for shipping. I don't care, really. Just, and to ask me to wait on hold for 30 callers ahead of me, that's like calling the federal government. I mean, come on now, that's not okay. So yeah, I can see application, my man.
Love the thought you're taking on this. How do I go about serving my existing base and making those experiences absolutely delightful and removing as much friction as possible from all of those things that might be low priority for me because it doesn't involve an additional sale or expansion, but are probably higher priority in the eyes of my customers, of reasons they either like to do business with me or dislike doing business with me.
Yeah.
I think that there is just a wealth of opportunity of how you can lock in your customer base by delighting them, providing both a higher level of service as well as a lower price point.
Interesting.
And the other wild part about that is you can probably knock down both of those things and improve employee satisfaction at the same time.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And, I think sometimes, there is that fear about, being replaced, in many of the folks in there. But again, it just kind of occurred to me is if I was in a profit sharing company or some sort of employee owned company or any kind of bonus based on company performance, then we all win. Then this type of technology becomes much more palatable. If I can see that, it's not going to affect my wallet share or it's not going to affect my wallet personally. So I think there are ways to really, introduce these things and without the fear of losing one's job.
That's right. I think that needs to be a really active part of the early portion of AI. So news about artificial intelligence is not limited to Harvard Business Review and CEO and CIO magazines. Everybody hears about it.
Right.
The moment somebody in the organization hears, hey, we're bringing an AI solution to your department, the initial response is going to be fear, not excitement.
Right.
Because it is basically saying we're doing e-commerce and outsourcing at the same time. That is the fear angle of it. So this is a time when leadership of these organizations should be very thoughtful about what are we going to go do, working through the questions of value prop alignment and also internal company values, and then explaining to the organization, here's the approach we're going to take. We're starting in these areas. This is why we're using AI. This is what we assume that we're going to accomplish. This is the way in which we are all going to benefit by it being used in the organization. Because I was part of another study where that had not happened. And we were talking to the top salesperson at an organization. And they said, listen, I know you're the AI person. I am familiar with what AI is. I don't know whether I should be looking for a job immediately after hanging up this call. That's like the one person they absolutely did not want to lose.
Right. Right.
And it was only after the CEO came back around and talked about, here is our vision for it. Here's how we're going to use it and where we will and won't use it, that began to calm the organization.
Yeah.
And then they began to lean in and help on these things rather than resist.
Got it. No, that's good words. And again, I think that you're right. The leadership has to be first aware of that fear. And then second, do everything in their power to quell that as they move forward. Hey, tell me about, the kinds of companies that you work with, now in your independent practice, out there helping folks when you're not on stage, wowing us or scaring the heck out of us. What are the kinds of companies that you typically are working with? What kind of distributors are you working with?
Absolutely love working with organizations in between 50 million all the way up to about $1 billion. That sweet spot of 100 to 500 million. Love working with them, especially those organizations that are family owned, employee owned, and ones like that who are organizations which can look at the circumstances, make decisions quickly, and then move to make change. In the realm of AI, the winners are not going to be those who have the biggest balance sheets. It is going to be those who are going to move the most quickly and decisively. That will either allow them to be highly competitive in a market versus the what I call kind of the super predators who may be coming into it, or to really push up their acquisition price because they've already been able to do this, or gain market share against competitors who are not moving. And I think that applies to smaller competitors, but also just as much to larger competitors who are not able to move due to internal inertia and being far more concerned about the internal corporate political games as opposed to the outcome of the existential implications that AI has for distribution organizations.
And how does somebody reach you if they would like to at least start the conversation?
Brooks Hamilton, I'm one of the only ones out there.
Okay.
and it's strategyadvisors.ai.
Perfect. Well, we will definitely put that in the show notes. And, my hope is that absolutely, people will reach out to you because they said, I saw you speak and I saw some of the things that you were talking about. And I believe there are a lot of people with questions out there. So, Brooks, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today. I really appreciated the conversation.
It was a lot of fun, Jason.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.